Well, joining me now is Philip Ingram, former senior British Army intelligence officer. Such a curious story, isn't it, Philip? Where do you think it's surfacing from then?
It is. Well, day 521 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day special military operation, and we're talking North Korea again. The troops on the ground, whenever they were speaking to the journalist, said that it had come from a friendly country that had captured them. I've been through all the arms seizures that have been over the last while and haven't seen this type of Grad missile in any of the arms seizures that have been reported openly.
Okay.
However, what we did have were reports of Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner Group, going to North Korea last year to procure weapons and ammunition from North Korea. North Korea's got huge stocks of them and using them in and around Bakhmut. So it would tie in with what the Ukrainian government has said in that they've captured them from Russian stocks on the ground. And of course, it's the same calibre. So the best way to dispose of them is to use them.
Let's talk about what's happening on the ground, because we had those rocket attacks, didn't we, that hit Dnipro, a commercial, not a commercial, it was a residential house that it hit. That's quite worrying.
Yeah, we'd two Russian rockets hit Dnipro last night. One hit a residential apartment block. The other hit the headquarters of the SBU, the Ukrainian security services. And interestingly, it was only two rockets. This is the residential block and some of the damage that there is, and some of the debris that there was on the ground. But interestingly, there's only two rockets. The Russians usually fire a number of them in a number of different targets. So it's too early to say what the implications of that are. And of course, it wasn't just the Russians firing rockets. The Ukrainians allegedly fired rockets into the Rostov Oblast port city of Taganrog. The Ukrainians haven't made a formal statement on this yet. The Russians said that they intercepted the rocket and shot it down, but we've got some local footage here from the rocket coming in, and we can see it exploding into the building. The Russians could have sort of knocked it out of the sky before it hit its intended target. No further details on that yet.
Okay. Well, let's look at the wider war then, because we know that the spring offensive that started earlier this year, we're expecting results all the time, aren't we, in this business? But that's not going to happen, particularly on the front line. Well,
the difficulty is, politically, people want results by a timeline. And they fix this timeline in their minds. And the Ukrainians captured large parts of territory back very quickly last year. However, this is a completely different game. The Ukrainians they've got the initiative at the moment. Their counteroffensive is working well. Yeah. The timelines are being dictated by the Russian defences, by the enemy. And the Ukrainians are progressing slowly. But they are progressing. And they've had some successes from Orov down to Robotyne. They have had some successes in capturing Staromayorsk, which has been under Russian control. They've had some successes and are beginning to try and circle Bakhmut, especially in the south, and getting in there. And the Russians are counterattacking up to the north of Crimea and trying to push forward, but not making any real progress. The Ukrainians, putting this into context, the Ukrainians in the last month, and this is according to the head of MI6, have captured back more territory from the Russians than the Russians captured in the whole of last year. So progress is slow. They're right up to the main defensive lines, and the Ukrainians are attacking the Russians from two sides, from the front, but from the depth. And one of the things they're attacking is morale. Ukrainian morale is very good, and this is President Zelensky visiting frontline troops up near Bakhmut, on the Bakhmut area today, and giving out awards. He's very good at maintaining morale. We're not seeing the Russian commanders coming up and doing the same into their areas, and the Ukrainians are successfully attacking logistic nodes, armoured vehicle workshops, lines of communication, rail and roads. So they're eroding the Russians' ability to support the Ukrainians from behind. They're attacking, support the Russians from behind. The Ukrainians are attacking the Russians from the front. And when they break through that crust, and it's a very, very hard crust, then they can exploit it. But there's only about 90 days left of proper armoured warfare weather before the ground starts to get too soft. They may not be able to launch their full counteroffensive until the spring of next year. Hopefully it'll be before that, but we have to be prepared for it to be later.